Hello and welcome to the Echo Chamber podcast. My name is Tony Groves, and folks, this will be a very short podcast with an old friend. Martin Leahy has done incredible efforts across several different causes and social issues in Ireland. He is the man who has risen from the gates of the Dáil to do 200 weeks of a one-man protest where he performs his song. You've all heard it, I'm sure, if you've listened to this podcast, Everyone Should Have a Home. He's also kindly graced us with his song Not in Gaza that plays at the end of the Palcast, the acclaimed Palcast series that I produce with Yusuf Al-Jamal, the Palestinian writer and activist. And Martin is aware of this, we've had people within Gaza contact us to get in touch to say, let Martin know that we've listened to it and we are touched by it. But we want to talk today because his housing protest, his one-man housing protest, is entering its final few days. And after 199 previous protests, Martin is going to pass the milestone of 200, and then he's going to pass the baton to you guys who are listening to take it up and make sure everybody should have a home. Martin, it's so great to see you, and thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all that you've done.
Oh, thanks, Tony. It's great to be on your podcast again. Yeah.
Can I ask the decision now to wrap it up? I'm sure it's mixed emotions, is it?
Yeah, it is. My friend there, Jude Sherry from Derelict Ireland, I think she put it best when she said, I was talking to her and Frank a few months ago, thinking about finishing, and I think she put it best when she said it must be hard to keep going and it must be hard to stop, and that's the way I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, you've mentioned two stalwarts of the of the housing crisis, and people who have been at the gates of the Dáil, which is several times over the last 199 times. These people, now, and this is where I'm going to talk. I'm trying to talk to listeners, but I'd like you to talk about it a little bit. I doubt they were your friends 199 protests ago. You've built community, Martin.
Exactly. That's exactly it, and it's been life changing in that way. And when like yourself and Rory and all the activists consistently highlighting the issue. Yeah, it is a community, and out of community comes, everything feeds into movements, and movements create power, and that can create change.
Yeah, and maybe just to, if listeners haven't heard previously, you yourself have been I'm gonna use the word victim. I don't want to victimize you, but you've been a victim of the housing crisis as well during this period, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose it was initially what kickstarted the whole thing was that I got word that the landlord was selling the property, and of course I was aware of the housing crisis, but I didn't ever think that it would affect me, because I lived in a kind of a rural part of West Cork, and I just felt that that I would always be able to do it in some way. Being a musician, like, I live in a small financial world, but I've always been able to do it. I've always been able to pay the rent, but this was the first time in my life that I realized that I wasn't able to do it. It was like lack of availability, and then the stuff that was available was just not affordable.
And when you were going through that process, and then I think at the time you might have listened to a Reboot Republic podcast with Rory and thought that you were going to take a stand. Maybe I'm giving Rory too much credit, but I can tell you he is a big fan of the work you've done. But I think that might have been part of the genesis of it as well.
That's exactly it. That's exactly, yeah. I was and I listened to a few things, but yeah, in particular a podcast that he did, Reboot. You might find some lines in the song like lifted from that podcast.
Actually, that's true. I hadn't thought about that, but there are. But again, see, this is where I look. First of all, I'm urging people this Thursday coming. So that is sorry, I'm messing up my dates now, folks. It's the 26th of March, Martin. Is it?
That's it. Perfect. 1
This
o'clock.
Thursday at 1 o'clock at the gates of the Dáil. Come along. There will be speakers, but you can ignore them. You can just but you have to sing along with Martin when he demands that everyone should have a home. That is the main thing to do. I should have said that at the outset. Um, I I do want to raise though the power of the protest song. And like, you know, if you were fortunate to attend the fundraiser we did in the Sugar Club a little while ago for Gaza, Martin performed obviously for us kindly, and what was really funny was it was a very heavy night. The discussions and topics were very heavy. We had personal stories of people who had literally had to, literally fled with just what the clothes on their back from Gaza, who were present that night, and we had this very heavy, somber thing. And I asked Martin to lighten the mood at the end, and he performed the song, which is a poke in the eye of the internet trolls, but just to show you the power of the protest song. Martin then performed that song. He played guitar while the legendary Christy Moore actually performed it. And Christy's a big fan of your protests. And, these are things that activism has built that community, Martin.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and it showed like it's really opened my eyes to the power of any type of action. Like the simple act of standing outside the Dáil, but like I suppose the consistency, and it just feels to me that like no matter how small or simple any kind of activism, it feels like it does. It does create vibrations, I think, and it does. It's definitely opened my eyes. Like I wouldn't have considered myself an activist at all before this. Like, but it's completely opened my eyes to the power of one person, and then, of course, what we could do together.
Yeah, I think what though in a time when we look at this, a time of global conflict and issues that are happening, like as we're speaking, Trump has decided he's given Iran 5 days to allow him to stop punching himself in the face. It's diabolical. There's no ceasefire in Gaza of any real doesn't deserve the name ceasefire. Like hundreds of people have been killed since this happened. But you've written about that. You wrote beautifully the song "Not in Gaza," and you've written about Mother Jones, and you've written about an unresolved murder or a case in Cork that where a young man lost his life. We need the protest songs more than ever. When we look across the what's happening we really need those protest songs to actually give people like me, idiots like me, something to listen to. Like I was told, full disclosure, told Martin before I came on, I love his Mother Jones song. I will play it in the car. My kids love the Mother Jones song, and they wouldn't have known who Mother Jones was apart from when they hear your song, then they ask questions. So, was this something that just came off the back of everyone should have a home? You went, oh, I'm actually going to look at other topics and write more music about it.
Yeah, well, you see, it all coincided with me starting to write and sing songs like in a kind of in a serious way around that time. So when it comes to highlighting issues, like from the music I've always been into, I've always seen songs as as that being a part of writing songs, shining a light on issues. I was always into, Christy Moore, Sinead O'Connor, Woody Guthrie, people like that use music in that way as well. So it felt like a very natural part. And that song that you were talking about, the Adrian Moynihan case about the guy who died, like that was the first song I ever wrote, and that, like, I've been tweaking it ever since. But I think I started that around 15 years ago. So like, I suppose the first song that I went to write was, I just have always seen music as functioning in that way. So yeah.
That's incredible. I didn't know that. I often think of the conversation where you might know the story where Leonard Cohen bumps into Bob Dylan and they try to say, I appreciate one another. And Cohen says, I love your song. Is it oh, forgive me, I can't recall which song he credited Dylan with because, and I'm a Dylan fan. But anyway, in the song, it doesn't really matter anyway. For the purposes of the story, he said, "How long did it take you to write that?" And Dylan said, "Well, it actually just came to me over the course of about 90 minutes." And Dylan then decides to return the compliment and says, "I love your song, Hallelujah. How long did that take you?" And he goes, "Oh, about the same." Lying, knowing that Hallelujah had taken him over a decade to write, So you were 15 years doing
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
I suppose that's to say, what is it? A great piece of art is never finished; it's simply abandoned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, part of it, I suppose, was the kind of sensitivity of the subject, and when I was putting the video together for that song recently, the death of Adrian Moynihan, I was given the footage of from the security camera, and so I felt that I could have been accurate, so I changed some lines, even that recently. So yeah,
Mm. I watched the video and it's quite disturbing to tell you the truth. I link to it here if people want to, but it is very troubling.
it
When you
is.
watch it, and yeah.
Yeah.
I want to come back to the housing issue though, because there will be people who will say that the campaign has ended in failure, Martin. And I'm saying this tongue in cheek because I don't believe it for
Mm,
a moment, because
mm,
we've demonstrated that the song has has shaped much of the activism that people have done. It's opened doors to other people to meet other people and created other opportunities. But sadly, the government continue to go on with their new policies of increasing eviction. Like, it has to be the policies to increase homelessness. If we've been increasing homelessness for over 10 years, year on, month on month on month on month, that's policy. That's no longer something that's, it's not a bug, it's a feature. How do you feel about that in the broad, knowing that, that this is part of the work that you've been doing, and then seeing the frustration that it's, we're still in this mess?
yeah. Well, I suppose yeah, it is highly depressing to see. I mean, Rory. I saw a clip from Rory Hearn on your podcast yesterday. The two of you were talking, and Rory was making the point that it has never been worse. The crisis. So yeah, that's interesting. Like what you're saying about I have noticed like over the years. I suppose I'm kind of I have an antennae for all the different types of kind of how would you say it? I see it as a kind of a self-policing where the public kind of police themselves into kind of to stop each other from protesting or something. And I I I put this story on Facebook the other day of one of the things that happened a few summers ago, where I was getting on the bus in Cork, and it was a lovely summer's day, and the bus driver was very chatty, and he was asking me if I was going busking for the day, and I told him no, I was going protesting, and then he laughed, and the people in the front row laughed as well, and I just thought it was a very kind of interesting. Um, I thought it kind of said a lot about like the attitude to protesting, or like how it's seen, and this kind of. I think it must be great for the government if, like, to think that people are kind of like there's this kind of a if protesters are kind of sometimes labeled a bit mad or a bit out of the box, um you know um and it ultimately stops people kind of tapping into that power, that kind of attitude. And as well, like what you're saying about, yeah, like I've come across loads of stuff like comments all down through the years where people say, well done, Martin, I admire what you're doing, but that won't make a blind bit of difference. You can't change the world, stuff like that. So I think that's a very kind of useful thing for it to be out in the air for a government. You know, of course, all the freedoms and all the liberties we enjoy, have all come about from, you're talking about Mother Jones, or the books on her are fascinating, starting from simple activisms and stuff like that. So I would say that the protest to me, it just feels like just a part of of an ongoing movement, and that's just a part that I played. I mean, I'm still going to continue with my activism in other forms. I haven't really figured out what yet, but you know,
You might take a Thursday off, Martin. That's what you might do.
Yeah, yeah, it'd be good to have the Thursdays back. Yeah, but I see that as like, I often think about the first gay, I guess it was called a gay pride march in Dublin. It was in the 70s sometimes. I should know what year, but very small gathering, extremely brave people at the time, and I often think about them, when they on their way back, someone's saying to them, "Well, did you get marriage equality from that? And did you decriminalize homosexuality?" And the answer would have to be no. But if you ask them now, the answer would have to be yes. So, movements can take a long time
no,
to do.
Yeah, it's such a good point. The second ever guest on the Tortoise Shack was Izzy Kamikaze, the legendary LGBTQ campaigner. And if you ever see the raw footage or the pictures of that parade, that Pride March as it was, there's a very young Izzy standing there,
Wow.
giving it socks. And I'm still actually to this day afraid of her, to be completely frank and honest with you and the listeners. But there she was, and she saw that and knew that everything was incremental. Everything was a little bit forward. And what you've done is help push that forward by inspiring people to say that you can make a difference. You can stand up, and you might not be the guy who actually finishes the statue of David, but you started to chip away at the marble to actually help us start to see the outline of what might be a masterpiece down the line. If I'm screwing up my analogies, I don't care. I'm just really glad that you came into our orbit as well over the years, because it helped in so many ways to see other people who are taking it on, because I often get frustrated thinking, why do I do this? Why do I literally labor in this? I could be, I was doing quite well in other areas and decided this is what I wanted to do. And then people like you give me inspiration. So I wanted to thank you personally before we wrap up for doing that. And just being Martin Leahy, the protester, the organizer, the musician, and my friend. So thank you so much, Martin. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in the flesh on Thursday.
Great. Well, right back at you, and you all there, Tony. Yeah.
Listen, folks, I told you be short and slightly emotional. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Misery or other people's gain. Enrich the rich and make them richer. They see property as opportunity, a business that'll make the sickness sicker. If they build too many houses, it'll drive down the price. It's just cold economics to them. So there's no will to address it, cause it's not in their interest. We've seen it over time and time again. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a home. In this world, in this life, it's a basic human right to have a dignified place you call your own. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a home. Safe and warm where you belong. Everyone should have a home. Housing developers that are hung up on greed and hungry vultures swooping from the sky. Crucifying rents that are on the increase. Shamefully they bleed the people dry. All the vacant properties, we can see them in our towns. Sign the papers and take down the boards. A home, not a hotel. A home, not a hostel. A home, not a cardboard box on the side of the road. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a home. In this world, in this life, it's a basic human right to have a dignified place you call your own. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a home. Safe and warm where you belong. Everyone should have a home. legislate in favour of investments they control. Our leaders they facilitate and then wave away the emergency created at their door. The money binds get richer and the poor just fade into hovels and holes they can't afford. Dystopian evictions, ruthless repossessions, a wealthy country's people in a stranglehold. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a home. In this world, in this life, it's a basic human right to have a dignified place you call your own. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have a home. Safe and warm where you belong. Everyone should have a home. Safe and warm where you belong. Everyone should have a home. Safe and warm where you belong. Everyone